Senior SEC Reporting Analyst over at Fox Factory. And thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming up. Tell us a little bit about what your company does and then describe your role to us.
Yeah, of course. So Fox Factory, we make high-end specialty suspension components for vehicles. We also have a number of different subsidiaries underneath us, one of them being Workiva Sports, which we acquired back in the end of 2023. And they're a manufacturer of baseball bats, gloves, and different accessories for baseball, which is pretty cool and different to what Fox has traditionally been known for.
And then, Gana, can you give us a little intro about what Finrep is? What do you do? Kind of how did you get into this space? And then we'll go forward.
I'm Gana Misra at Finrep. We predominantly provide SEC reporting teams. We pretty much get you right from book close to filing process today. Was doing product management and venture capital. Prior to this, used to see our own set of portfolio companies struggling on finance, which made me go deeper into these areas and super excited to have you here.
So, if you could just give us a quick rundown of where you started your career, and then how did you make the transition from accounting into a specialized role such as senior and SEC reporting?
Yeah, of course. So I think I have kind of a unique circumstance and journey. I started out actually joining the military. I joined the Navy where I was going to start mechanics. Nothing to do with accounting. I don't think most people grew up wanting to be an accountant. It's not really a dream of most people. But it was towards my transition class when I was transitioning out. We were looking at the projection of different fields. I saw accounting as one of the most to exponentially grow. I was always good at math, so it just made sense for me to go in the field. Went to college. As I was in my junior year of college, I didn't really know too much about the CPA track. I realized, okay, that's what I want to do. I was going to achieve more, constantly trying to push myself. So I decided that that was going to be my path. So then I applied for a master's after getting my bachelor's. I continued with that, got my master's, and then I entered public accounting. When I entered, I was working at a national firm. Worked for about 2 years in audit practice, and the hours were pretty long. The busy seasons were really tough. Yeah, I think one of the hardest, I wouldn't say first, but definitely the hardest weeks I worked 90 to 100 hours that week. And there was one night where I maybe had 2 hours of sleep. Luckily, I was working from home, so I didn't have to drive my vehicle. But I had 2 hours of sleep, and then I had to wake up and continue working because we were that last push to get our audit report out for them to file their 10K. So it was just really taxing on me, I think, mentally and physically. The lack of sleep and the hard push at the end. But it made me realize, it could get better than that, definitely.
So now that you're on the other side of that and you're dealing with the auditors, do you feel like you have extra sympathy and just a different relationship with them, kind of being on that side before and now you're on the other side, extra motivation to get them your documents on time so that they're not crushed as well?
Yes, exactly. I think that's one thing that's been so helpful about being an auditor prior to being in this role, is I know what they're going through. I can try to help them out and make their job a little bit easier, and in the end, it makes my job easier. Because once we get down towards the very end, I don't want to have a lot of questions coming from outside sources on things that maybe we could have tackled a little bit earlier. So by just trying to help out the other teams with collaboration as soon as possible, it definitely helps out me in the long run.
How many people would you say you're collaborating with as far as pulling information from different teams? You have maybe technical accounting separate from SEC reporting. Walk me through how that works. I know a lot of people I've talked to, it's just you might be getting information from 30 different people and all pulling that together. How do you keep track of everything in that workflow?
Yeah, well, that's definitely one of the challenging parts, especially with my company. We have about 20 different subsidiaries that we have to consolidate information from. On top of that, not all of them are using the same ERP systems, so we're getting data in different formats from different sources. So it really takes a lot of me to create my own sort of trackers and to continuously follow up with different individuals. And staying on top of the time management for that is really important. So setting up schedules, timelines, all of these different little pieces together really help to keep us on time, on track, and to make sure we're getting the right information from the right people. And luckily we've had the system kind of built already, so it's really just more to maintain and then try to improve upon rather than starting from the ground and having to build everything
say you were in more of like a controllership position. Can you kind of talk a little bit about the difference between being an SEC and like more of like a audit background, technical accounting sort of path, and then being in more of like a day-to-day controllership? Like kind of talk about those two different paths in accounting and kind of your experience and like what made you choose SEC reporting.
Yeah, definitely. Well, when I was working in audit, I was always trying to look at where do I want to go later. I'm always constantly trying to see what's my goal in 5 years, what's my goal in 1 year, what do I want to achieve. So when I was in audit, I was trying to see where do I want to go. I didn't really see myself being a partner in audit. I wanted to do something a little bit different. I wanted to move into industry. I wanted to, record some journal entries and do a little bit more. SEC reporting seemed like one area where you can really dive into every little piece of the company. You look at finance, you're talking with legal, you're dealing with technical accounting, and then you're doing the filings itself. So you have this end product of a 10K or a 10K where you saw from beginning to the end. That's like my little baby, I guess.
Yeah.
So that was something that sounded really fun. And then thought about it even then. Okay, well, how high do I want to go? It would be great to be chief accounting officer one day. And I think that going into SEC reporting was a great way to segment into there. You get to see different parts of the company. But the one part that I think is really difficult for me to have stepped into is tax. Tax is really kind of a niche part of accounting to where what's your tax, you're in tax. So that's one part that I've always tried to improve on a little bit and hopefully get some more exposure there.
Can you talk a little bit about work-life balance? You're out of the 100-hour crazy audit weeks. Now you're into a more cyclical business where you know your deadlines far in advance and you can kind of plan your life around when the quarterly filing goes out or when the annual filing goes out. Can you talk a little bit about that and like the perks of being SEC reporting as far as work-life balance goes?
Yeah, definitely. And it's a part of the culture of where I work as well. It's that it's very flexible. A lot of accounting, especially SEC reporting, is deadline driven. So we know typically when we have a deadline, something needs to be reported and we work around that deadline. So if I have stuff that I need to do personally, or children, so if I need to go to school or the doctor, it's been very flexible for me to be able to do that. And then maybe I just need to make it up for work in the evening. I think that I've had a lot of trust in my organization for the role that I have. So I've been able to really take care of what I need to do as long as I'm taking care of the work that I need to do as well. And that's been a nice feeling to have that trust from the organization to be able to do that. I feel like when I was in public accounting, there was a lot of micromanaging going on. So I didn't really feel like I had that trust. I felt like I was being made a lot. And it's a big contrast from us. It's been really nice and a breath of fresh air, I would say. You mentioned earlier about my path getting into SEC reporting from public accounting. And that's one thing that I did actually see as pretty difficult. There aren't too many roles in SEC reporting that are just the beginning analyst. When I was looking at this, they was the senior analyst, and I didn't know how to really get there. They wanted 4 years experience, and they all wanted public accounting and CPA. So I had my CPA, so I was good at that point. But the 4 years experience was difficult. So I just got really lucky actually, and kind of reached out to them. And that's how I got into my role as an analyst, and then eventually promoted to senior analyst. But that's one thing that has been very difficult. I think for a lot of people that enter in SEC reporting is how do you get in as the grand level? There aren't too many of that. And I think you either just get fortunate like me, where someone will reach out to you, or you can find that 1 out of 100, or you're just going to have to work up to the 40 years or whatever you're looking for. I'd say to always just look at where you want to go, what they're looking for, and try to achieve that in the time that you get there.
Which companies in the US have gone through an SEC reporting process today?
So for SEC reporting, it's going to be any public companies that report to the SEC. So for me, I work for Fox, which is public, and so we are constantly required to have different SEC reporting.
Can you walk us through from typical quarterly reporting process? What does the beginning reporting process look like?
Yeah, of course. So our quarter end starts a lot before the quarter. Usually it's in the first or second month. And that begins with us creating a timeline. And timeline was look at going from the end of February to the beginning of August. So we always try to file a week early. scheduling all of our collaborations with the auditors, with legal, with finance, and then having our different drafts of the 10Q or 10F we're working on built in within the schedule. Once we have that timeline kind of set, we send it to our chief financial officer, chief accounting officer, and chief legal officer. And we kind of get an okay at the dates that we have there. And then from there, we act on them. So that's just the timing part. Then we have a request to support file, which we send out to all of the different controllers, different contacts, anyone who's going to need to help us with some sort of support for disclosures or different financial audits. And we send that out, and we have a tracker for that too. So we have several trackers. It's saved in our SharePoint. And that's the method that we go for apps with every release that we have in there against the review and approval process for anything like that.
You said that 1 week early filing goal, is that common practice across all industries and all public companies, or is that something specific to you, do you think?
I'm not 100% sure. So I would not be honest to say one way or the other. I know for Fox and for our organization, historically we've always done it a week early, and that's just that extra effort. No chance to deal with being late on the filing.
So for any of our listeners out there, comment if you are a week early, or if you're 2 weeks early, or if you're the day before. I think that might be interesting to see kind of what different organizations are targeting.
In terms of preparing for a 10Q, what does the process for roll forward look like for you today? How do you navigate that? How do you keep a track of these numbers? Do you end up using one of these products which are out there, or what does the tech stack look like?
Okay. So our main financial reporting platform that we use is Workiva. We haven't used all of the roll forward features yet, but we are starting to try to use different parts of it. We do use a sync function within Excel. Our main operating system, our ERP system is Workable. So we're able to actually have our financial statements aside from the cash flows exported from Workable itself. So from there, we use the Excel file from Workable, and we're able to sync it directly into Workiva. So whenever the balance sheet, the income statement, we can have all that data rolled forward directly into there. The hard part is sometimes with the other disclosures and other items, those are somewhat manual. We do use the Excel functionalities within Workiva, although they are a little, not the best I'd say, they don't have all the same functions you do in your desktop Excel. So we do use that, and we have different support files that we keep externally, and then we update the numbers internally, which is somewhat of a manual process at times, but we're always looking at ways to improve and to decrease the amount of manual data entry that we are reviewing.
Which parts of this 10Q is it the combination of writing your disclosures, these footnotes, which are the most time-consuming tasks?
I would say definitely the collaboration part. As I mentioned earlier, just having so many subsidiaries with different ERP systems, and some of these disclosures will require follow-ups, just automatically we're going to have to follow up with them. So if we have multiple back and forth, or maybe a late response, it really slow down and enter the process, then being an SEC reporting, we're in charge of that final product. So it all really slowly rolls down to us. So if one person's late, it ends up making me late. And then that all goes to the C-suite. So it doesn't look good when we're like listeners, but we always do our best to make sure everything's on the level.
In terms of coordinating between different teams, are there practices that you follow that you have seen that they give you a significant advantage that you would want to share with our listeners?
Yeah, personally for me, what I try to do is during my standard working hours, like 8 to 5, if I have minutes during lunchtime, I'll make sure any email, any Teams thing, I'm going to respond to that right away. And then anything that I need to work on that doesn't involve working or collaborating with other teams, I try to work on that at night. I kind of have this knowing that during our crunch time, I'm going to have to put in a couple hours that night, but knowing that it's not going to last forever, it's always helping me get through it. But yeah, just trying to separate that time to where we're not tasking independently when no one else is online. I keep myself available for other teams in our organization during working hours.
that are being issued for the companies outside? Do these notices also seem to impact your organization in the future? How do you keep a track of all of them, Joshua?
Me personally, I don't have too much to comment on this myself. The SEC reporting team is made up of myself and then also my senior manager, where I think she would mainly be the one who's dealing with the high-end items when it comes to the SEC reporting for our team. I do know that I don't believe since I've started we've had any comments or else I've been made aware of that. Good job. Thank you. So that's been nice. I don't really have too much to speak on this myself personally.
As far as like regulatory updates, like we were just talking about ASUs and maybe some deregulation with quarterly reporting going away, with stuff like that, do you feel it's important to really like stay on top of that? Or are you more just in the technical side, like you're not really worried about big picture things like that? If you are staying up to date on that, which I assume you would be, where do you go to look for information? And like how do you best stay up to date on just trends and changes in the industry?
Yeah, definitely. So first we try to look for the guidance in general. Just try to understand the guidance. A lot of the guidance is hard to understand at times. So then we look at any guidance that's provided for typically big four accounting firms. And we try to see any samples that are provided by them. And another option is if any other organizations have chosen to really disclose this type of item, we'll try to look and benchmark off what other companies have done and use that as an example. That's been very helpful just in my own practice so far with current disclosures that we have, seeing what other companies are doing and helping me to better understand where we are in comparison.
What does that process look like for you to benchmark your disclosure versus a peer or a different company that may have really disclosed? Like, what does that workflow look like? Do you just want like two screens side by side, or is there like a tool you can use that helps you to compare information?
Yes, currently we're using Intelligize. I honestly don't use benchmarking and this part of SEC reporting as the knowledge as my senior manager, but that's what I have used with limited use I have in this area.
What does the tech stack for the company team look like? Do you use Workiva? What else would you use?
So we use Workiva as the second main that we're using. We use it for financial reporting. We also use it for those verification processes. And then we use Intelligize for our benchmarking of SEC disclosures. And then we're also using PwC's disclosure checklist to make sure that we're capturing all of the required disclosures. And I believe those are the main technologies for Oracle for your case system and any other items that we have there.
Interesting point about disclosure checklist. How has your experience been navigating the split across multiple sections? How has your experience been filling out these checklists?
Yeah, it's really a big team effort on this one. Luckily, we're able to roll forward a lot of the items. There haven't been too many changes in terms of what we're reporting from one period to the next. But it is a really long process with a lot of days or hours not even applying. And I haven't really looked too much into alternatives to it, but I think it would be a great feature if your financial reporting platform has something built into it. And maybe it's checking for us. And if there is some sort of question whether we are reporting it or not, maybe they don't flag us and then we answer it. I feel like there's a lot of questions in the checklist, and it takes a lot of time for items that are just in research.
With everything that's happening with AI products overall, I'm sure you have tried a few yourself. What has your experience been? And what are the kind of tasks that you actually want AI to take off from your plate today?
I've recently started using AI a lot, and mainly our company's allows to use Microsoft Copilot. And also I use ChatGPT personally myself. I'm typically using it to look for references to different guidance a lot of it. It's an easy, quick way to search the data and to also find examples of different accounting treatments based on that guidance. Another one is voice coding, just in Excel to write VBA codes or even just to write formulas. Maybe I don't know the formula in my head, and it's different formulas combined, so I'll just give that prompt of what I want, and it will spit out a formula for me, and I use that. It saved me so much time just by trying to make sure we can find the outside source of the information is getting from it. So when it comes for accounting and trying to find guidance, I try to make sure things are one hundred for they're just the most trusted as of this point. So I try to find guidance from the PwC's guidance, but very easy for me to understand and read and utilize. So I try to just make sure that I have a reputable source for the guidance. I definitely have asked certain prompts about accounting, and it comes from something I've never heard of, and I just decide not to go with that. And so I let myself look at the guidance itself rather than using anything for that reason.
Bills like the beautiful bill and tariffs, they could significantly impact some of your disclosures. What is the process today to actually write these disclosures in line with the new bills that will actually come through?
Yeah, so with this, a lot of this process is more so taken over by my senior manager for this. But similar to like any new ACUs, if we try to see what type of guidance has come out on it, and then see if anyone else has disclosed these type of items. And it takes a lot of collaboration with all the different teams. So if the one big beautiful bill act has a lot to do with tax, so we are heavily reliant on our tax team to help us with that. And then if we have any third-party outside consulting to help, then we'll also utilize that. It's really a collaboration between different teams to try to make sure we're doing it the right way.
Interesting. And Joshua, in terms of like the other parts of your workflows in particular cooling season, once you have done with your filings, what do you typically spend most of your time on that?
Yeah, so that's one thing that I think is pretty cool about my role is it's not just SEC reporting. A lot of it is in corporate accounting, finance, and technical accounting. So myself personally, I've been focusing on lease accounting and SEC 42. We have so many different subsidiaries, making sure that we're using the same treatment for each of our different locations so that everything stays consistent. And there's a lot of little nuances and intricacies within leases, just lease incentives themselves, or a whole rabbit hole you can go down into. So I've been trying to really focus on different parts of technical accounting leases right now, and then also trying to improve on any of the processes we already have. So a lot of our leases we've been doing with manual Excel, and we're trying to implement lease query, which is a lease platform to account for our leases. And so that's one of our projects I've been working on is this implementation of this new software for leases. So I would say that a lot of the time is trying to fix stuff, trying to make it better, and then just trying to help out anyone who needs some sort of help.
As a part of SEC reporting team, do you folks also end up preparing presentations for your executives? Is that a regular process or is it a one-off?
Yeah, so we do end up presenting or contributing to the presentation. We have a disclosure meeting where we look at the high level what the business is looking at for the quarter, which we do help prepare. Again, this is mainly an item that my senior manager will be the one reporting on. And then also the audit committee. We do have parts of slides that we are preparing ourselves, and then we have the finance and different teams in our organization also that will prepare those.
Can you help our listeners understand what is an audit committee within a company and how is the SEC reporting team and other teams within the company interacting with this?
Yeah, so the audit committee is part of the board of directors, and they're really in charge of how we're dealing with our own accounting internally. They're in charge of our internal audit team, and they're also in charge of discussing with our auditors, our external auditors, how we are performing our accounting itself. So they're really looking at and seeing how we're performing as accounting individuals, how the company is performing with our accounting standards, and what the auditors believe we're doing good or we need to work on within accounting. Yeah, I don't have too much collaboration myself with audit committee or attending any of those meetings. I'm not quite at that level yet, but from my understanding at this point, that's the majority of what I see.
And would you yourself find going to ACMB resources often, or is that something that once you moved out from your audit role, you have not been actually going to those sections anymore?
Once I go to the PCOB sections too often, sometimes when I'm looking in the guidance, I do, but more often than not, I'm using one of the big fours codification that they have invested.
Matured AI set of products where you could see these models doing a lot of heavy lifting and tasks. Which are those set of tasks that you feel that you still require experts to actually run through? This is systems actually capable enough of doing. Right now we have multiple products out there in the market which can handle journal entries for you. Somebody would handle lease accounting for you. If an accountant today, what are the kind of skills that they should go across and build and focus on, which makes them ready for a world which is filled with all the AI models and products?
Yeah, definitely. And I even said this in waste counting itself. There's a lot of judgment that goes into accounting itself. Different ways that you can treat one accounting standard depending on how you want to, really. At the end of the day, a lot of it will give you the same result. It just depends on how you want to treat it at one point. So I think that's one part that's really important in accounting and SEC reporting that hand models may be able to do, but it won't have that same judgment that a human can in determining which reasoning will choose A versus B. There could be one reason to and not to, whether it's going to increase expenses in the short term or if it's going to decrease in the short term. So there's different reasonings between different choices. And may not be at the point yet to start doing that, but that's in the future, you never know.
On the flip side of that, what are the most manual, time-consuming things where you're like, why am I doing this? Why is AI not doing this? Like, for example, when I was like a very junior level accountant, like an internship, I was like manually reconciling credit card statements, right? It's like now AI does that in 30 seconds, and like there's no reason like a human should be spending time doing that. Is there any part of your job or throughout your whole experience in accounting where you've done something that you're like, wow, like this is a job for AI?
Yeah, I think one work, and that's just very, very, very large. This is some work book, and anytime like you're on a call or on the road or doing anything, it crashes my entire computer. So I think in the large data sets such as that, it would be really helpful to have some sort of AI application to help sort through the data without crashing my site and storing in a cloud-based system. But I don't have too much manual repetitive tasks that I could really have taken away. So I can't say personally anything quite yet, but just some large data sets and being able to have those realized. It's just difficult to do in my computer itself.
In terms of going back to the things that you go across and search GitHub for, some of these products where you actually navigate to, are there hacks or better search capabilities that you actually use over a period of time to find a restatement or actually late filing and ensuring that you would want to share with our viewers?
I actually don't have any shortcuts or tips or tricks for Edgar. Most times when I have looked at different organizations, it was through Intelligize or just basic searching. I haven't had too much experience looking through Edgar for different organizations at this point in my career. Do you really have any tips yet? If you might want to ask them, let me know.
This guy's got some tips in there.
We'll talk about this later. Just could you tell our listeners what are the different roles that fall under the chief financial officer in a company? What are the different teams and what do they essentially do?
Yes, of course. Under our chief financial officer, we actually have our chief accounting officer. And then we also have the FP&A team, which is financial planning and analysis. And then under our chief accounting officer, it's going to be our treasury team. It's going to be our corporate accounting team. It's going to be our SEC reporting team, which is what I'm part of. And our SEC reporting and our corporate accounting team, we take care of most of the technical accounting. So it's kind of like a combined role. We don't just do the SEC reporting. It's a little bit of everything.
And can you walk us through what does an FP&A team do today? What does just treasury teams do today?
Yeah, using that to determine our budget and also to set expectations on earning and growth in the future. So that's my basic understanding of our FP&A team does. Our treasury team, they're more so in charge of the cash of the company. If we have any big transactions, they'll be releasing those funds. And they also collaborate with us a lot when it comes to disclosing stuff into our 10-Ks and 10-Ks with debt. A lot of the debt is related to them. They have the ins and outs there, so they're really a big part of the disclosures for us.
In terms of finding a community of SEC reporting professionals, are there events or groups that you are part of that other SEC reporting enthusiasts and reporting professionals can join?
I'm actually not aware of it. I'm sure I looked into it. That's actually a good point and something that I think would be beneficial to myself and maybe anyone else listening that is part of SEC reporting. I think that working together, we can share different experiences and help each other and each other's teams grow.
And what's one thing that you wish that your colleagues that are in different teams understood about SEC reporting?
Yeah, and I don't think it's everyone that doesn't understand this, but just the amount of collaboration that we do have, and our work is really dependent on other people providing them first. A lot of work that we do can't be done without receiving some sort of data or input from someone else. So if we're behind on something, it's not because we want to be behind. I try to be early, at least 5 minutes, 15 minutes early to any obligation, but it's usually because somewhere up the line, there's been something that's been really a little bit. I'd say every quarter there's going to be one item that's going to be a little bit late. It usually takes a follow-up. If the follow-up doesn't cut it, then you have to CC my senior manager in there. And we always escalate one more person out from each follow-up that we have to go through until it gets there. Usually once we get the chief accounting officer within the name of it, we're going to get that. Not coming in very fast. It's doing best to reach out to you for something that you can ask for one times.
What advice would you give to a junior level person in your org that may be interested in moving into a role such as your role? Or just accounting professionals in general? I know it's hard to find these entry level jobs, especially in SEC reporting, which is a position where there's so few seats within an organization.
Yeah, definitely. I think one thing that's really important is to CPA as soon as possible. Even if you don't want to stay in public accounting, regardless of what you want to do, it's CPA done early. Because it's only going to get harder once you're working full time. I was doing that working full time with 2 kids and then they're on the way. So it was really taxing on me and my family. And when I got it done, it was the biggest weight off my shoulder. I felt like just doing it again. And I felt like if you were to get more of it done, if I would have gotten more done during college, or if I worked on it with my family during my first year out of college, it was 1 year of learning it down, but it's spending it down with them. So I think that was something that was difficult for me, and I wish I would have had advice on that. Another thing is Excel skills. In a day-to-day in college, we didn't use Excel too much. Not to the level of using it where it's 8 hours a day on Excel. So definitely learning keyboard shortcuts has definitely been helpful for me. We're not using them in this almost at all. It makes work a lot faster, a lot more efficient. It's definitely something to look into. And then try to just continue using learning AI as much as possible. That's what I'm trying to do because I know it's only going to get used more when we're in this field. We're going to have to make a look that you're working with AI, or AI is going to take my job before I'm working with them.
How do you see that relationship for a junior level person? If AI can do a lot of the entry level work, which it can, how do you see breaking through that? Because the senior level accountants that are using AI are obviously getting more productive, but eventually they're going to retire and they're going to need new senior level accountants. So the only way we're going to get that is new analysts. But if the AI can only do the new analyst job, what is the new analyst going to do to break through this?
Exactly. That's a really great question. Something else like that on me as well. I think learning is by doing a lot of it. And we're not being able to do some of these items. We can get hard to learn how's actually being done. I think it's going to be a push for the younger generation and anyone that's going into accounting now through college. But baseline and understanding of what's going on in the background. At least for me, that's a little bit helpful for me. I'm more of a learning by doing kind of person.
Looking back on your whole career, even excluding accounting in your career in the military, what's been like some of the biggest shaping moments that you've had or biggest realizations you've had?
Yeah, I think just like my military experience in general, it wasn't from getting war zones or anything like that, but I think just having to deal with stressful situations on a daily basis and putting that into helping me for going into accounting or in stressful situations all the time. But being able to act calmly and still have a positive attitude, I've been noted a few times that, during a busy season at and then, always so friendly and cheerful and boosting up the team. I think that's something that's really kind of led through my military experience. I've been able to deal with stressful situations and really work with my team. There's really just one team, one fight, working as well to get that handled.
Is there any closing remarks or anything you want to say to your younger self? What would you say?
If I was going to look back at my younger self, just trust in yourself. I think it's easy to have this imposter syndrome sometimes, but I feel like you really are worthy for the position you're in at times, but making all the steps to get there, that's worth it itself of where I'm at today. So, yeah, just believing in myself.
Thanks. I like it. How about you? You can't give advice. Tell your younger self. You've had an interesting life yourself. Let's hear one thing that if you could have told yourself 10 years ago, like where you are today.
I started so much.
Started what soon?
Started the startup journey so much. Stick by it. Not give it up easily.
How do you stick by it when it gets hard? Because sometimes we have a meeting with a client and it's not positive feedback and we're like, oh, this is being about a few of them. So how do you keep going every day? You keep going and it's impressive.
This is like the only path. I don't know anything else right now. We do whatever it takes to make it successful. That's one of the ways. I mean, aligning myself to a long-term goal. Where do I want to see the team or the company going towards? Everybody putting in so much of effort day in, day out. Across time zones. It's always hectic. I mean, the companies that we have typically up against, we literally have no shot of winning those games, but we win them. And that's only because of the team and that's all that we built through. So that keeps me going.